Hi guys, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to add GTIN and the MPN to Google Merchant Center for Shopify stores. Not only that, I'm going to show you also how to exclude them from the Google Merchant Center should your products not have a GTIN or an MPN number. And as we're using our test store again for Shopify, there's a couple of ways on how you can add them in. So let me quickly show you. So if you come to the back end of your Shopify store, you can come to your products. Here on the left, you can click inside each product and you can scroll down after the information, and you can see here it says barcode, it says ISBN, UPC, GTIN, etc. This is where you can add it in to individual products. You can also add those numbers using the Google and YouTube app. When that loads up, you can just come across here to manage products, and you can add them in individually here, either for each individual product or each variant. Now, doing this one by one is a bit long-handed, so there's quicker ways you can do this. One is by adding a supplemental feed where you can do it in bulk, and I'll show you where to go for that. So if you come back into the Google Merchant Center account, you can come under products and come down to feeds, and under supplemental feed, you can click on this, and then you can upload those details using either a Google Sheet or a content API. You can also fetch it. You can also use a scheduled fetch. I haven't personally ever done this myself, nor have I done any manual uploads. So I'd recommend checking out these two links on learning how to do that. And then you would walk through, giving it a name, going through the setup, then adding it to your primary feed. But I'll show you all this in a separate video. If you'd like me to go through this in more detail, leave a comment below and I'll create a separate video showing you how to do this. For the purpose of this video and our test store in Shopify, I'm going to be adding in a feed rule. We can notify Google that these numbers do not exist. And because our test store is an AliExpress dropshipping store, no GTINs or MPN numbers exist. So it's important that we do exclude these out. Let me show you how to do that. Back at the Merchant Center account dashboard again, we come back to products and under feeds, we select that again. Going to click on the content API or whatever the name of your feed is. As we've connected our store through the Google and YouTube app for now, this is the name that's been given. We click on that. And here we are in the settings of this particular feed. By the way, you can always change the name here should you wish. And then we come across this tab here. It says feed rules. So select feed rules. And now we have to assign an attribute to this feed. Come into Google's documentation about GTINs, MPNs, and or brand. We need to use this identify exists attribute in order to signal to Google what we need to do to exclude these GTINs out so we can improve our performance on our products whether we're running Google Shopping, free listings, etc., etc. And scrolling down on their documentation here, as we're using this as a guide, there's a couple of ways you can do that, even through a sheet or an XML or content API. How these are supported, they call it a Boolean. All right. You can either say yes, true, no, or false. Supported values through a content API is either true or false. Now, when you do add the identify exists attribute, it's important that we do not have any values in the GTIN or the MPN field. Very, very important. Otherwise, it's just going to confuse the crap out of Google Merchant Center. Coming back to the Google Merchant Center under the feed rules, let's click the blue plus button under create rule. And as we scroll, select processed attributes, and you can scroll down here until you find the identify exists attribute. So we click that. Now there's a couple of options here in terms of what source you want to draw the attribute value from. But this all depends on the type of attribute you're trying to assign. As we're doing a blanket attribute across all our products, we just need to select set to as we are assigning a specific value from a feed. We select set to, go to type, select the drop down on type or select, add a value, and we say no. The reason why we say no is because those numbers don't exist. Select OK. It's asking to save as draft, so we'll just click that through. Okay, so our test is complete, and we can take a look at that test by clicking show test. And by scrolling down, we can see the identifier has been added to 99% of the products. And from clicking the drop down, we can see the current identifier exists to the new identifier exists being no. And we can see where we've got issues under our products. It says if you apply these draft rules, it does say that we may have some incorrect values. Now, as we can see here, that the existing issues that says 69% will be resolved. However, it's also saying that we'll still have some items with incorrect values. So the only way we'll truly know if we've mitigated this GTIN or MPN or brand performance limitation is to apply it. So come back, we'll hit back button, and we'll just select apply. Okay, and that's all done. So let's come back to diagnostics. And as we scroll down here on the diagnostics, we can see that still some products are affected due to a missing identifier. Now we can view some examples here as to which products are still having issues and will be limited by performance. And you can either hover over each information icon to see what the issues are, or you can click inside so we can view what limitations they're going to have. As we scroll down to the bottom under the final attributes, we can see the identifier exists. We've said no. So technically it should be removing that performance issue with a missing GTIN MPN or brand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait about 24 hours to see if these limited performance due to the missing identifiers does end up disappearing. However, if it's not, I'll create a new video on how to add a supplemental feed with adding a new identifier as false as opposed to no. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that video in the future. If you'd like to boost sales in your Shopify store by increasing your average order value size, check out this link in this page here in the description below. And you're more than welcome to download my free PDF here on how you can implement